Listen, I have been teaching at the Galactic Military Academy for 17 cycles now, and I thought I had seen everything. Truly, I had trained Voltharian shock troopers, who could bend steel with their mandibles. I had overseen Krexian battle monks who meditated for 3 days straight before disassembling a combat mech with their bare claws. I had even survived a semester with a class full of Xinthian teenagers, which, if you know anything about Xinthians during their hormonal phase, you understand is basically a war crime in itself. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for Kira Valdez. The first day she walked into my advanced combat theory class, I barely noticed her. She was small, barely reaching my lower thorax, with that ridiculous mammalian hair that humans insist on maintaining in various pigmentations. Hers was dark, pulled back in what they call a ponytail, which seems neither practical nor related to actual tails. She wore the standard cadet uniform, silver and black, with the Earth insignia on her shoulder. Just another human, I thought. Soft species. Fragile. They break if you look at them wrong. How spectacularly wrong I was. The trouble started 3 weeks into the semester. We were running tactical simulations. Standard stuff. The scenario was simple enough. A hostage extraction from a fortified compound defended by automated turrets and a squad of hostile combatants. The cadets were supposed to work in teams of 5, plan, coordinate, execute. Most groups took 40 minutes to an hour. The passing threshold was 65 minutes. Kira requested to go solo. I laughed. Actually laughed. My translator box made that unfortunate clicking sound that my species produces when we find something absurd. Solo. A human? Against a combat scenario designed for 5 trained soldiers? Absolutely not, I told her, my head tentacles swaying with what I thought was obvious authority. This is a team exercise, Cadet Valdez. You will join Group 7. She looked at me with those unsettling binocular eyes that humans have. 2 eyes. Just 2. How do they even perceive depth properly? With respect, Instructor Thlanix, I would prefer to attempt it alone. The other cadets were watching now. A Voltharian named Grex snorted, which sounds like a hydraulic press malfunctioning. A tall Yendari female called Selma whispered something to her partner that made them both emit their species' version of amusement. I should have said no. I should have put her in Group 7 and moved on with my lesson plan. But there was something in her expression, a quiet confidence that irritated me. Perhaps I wanted to teach her a lesson about human limitations. Perhaps I was just tired of Earth cadets thinking they were special because their planet had recently joined the Galactic Coalition. Fine, I said, accessing the simulation controls with 2 of my manipulator limbs, while keeping my primary eyes on her. You have 1 attempt. When you fail, and you will fail, you will write a 5,000-word essay on the importance of teamwork in military operations. She nodded once. And if I succeed, the audacity. I liked that, actually. If you succeed within the passing threshold, I will excuse you from the next written examination. She smiled. Humans do that, showing their bone-crushing teeth as a sign of happiness. Disturbing species. Deal. The simulation began. Now, I need you to understand something about these combat scenarios. They are designed by the finest military minds in the Coalition. They are calibrated to challenge cadets who have trained for years in their respective martial traditions. The automated turrets have reaction times measured in microseconds. The hostile combatants, while simulated, follow advanced AI patterns that adapt to tactical decisions in real time. Kira Valdez walked into that simulation, and I swear to the 7 nebulas, she made it look easy. She did not rush. She did not panic. She moved through the compound like water flowing around stones, using angles and shadows that I had not even realized were in the programming. When the turrets acquired her position, she was already gone. When the hostiles moved to intercept, she was somehow behind them. She did not use the standard weapons loadout. Instead, she grabbed a piece of debris, some broken conduit piping, and used it to short-circuit an entire section of the defense grid. Then she actually climbed up the exterior wall using maintenance rungs that were supposed to be cosmetic details, and entered through a ventilation shaft. 17 minutes later, she walked out of the simulation with the holographic hostage, uninjured, Objective complete. The classroom was silent. Even Grex had stopped his derisive snorting. I checked the simulation logs 3 times. No errors, no glitches. She had simply done what should have been impossible. How? I asked, because I genuinely needed to know. Did you complete that scenario in 17 minutes? She shrugged, an infuriatingly casual gesture. Humans are good at improvisation, Instructor. We have had a lot of practice. That should have been my first warning. The second warning came during combat drills 2 weeks later. We were practicing hand-to-hand techniques, or appendage-to-appendage for those of us without hands. The cadets were paired by weight class because despite our various physiologies, mass still matters in close combat. Kira was matched against a Crexian named Borth, who was approximately 3 times her mass and had natural armor plating that could deflect small arms fire. Borth was not trying to hurt her, of course. This was training, but Crexians are proud warriors, and Borth was not about to let a soft little human embarrass him. The match lasted 8 seconds. Kira did something with Borth's center of gravity, used his own momentum against him, and suddenly 200 kilograms of armored Crexian was face down on the training mat with a human knee pressing between his shoulder plates and a training knife at his throat. "Yield?" she asked pleasantly. Borth yielded. I should mention that Borth went on to become a decorated combat instructor himself, but he never, ever accepted a rematch with Kira Valdez. By mid-semester, the other instructors were talking. Professor Velik, who taught strategic doctrine, mentioned that Kira had corrected his analysis of the third Proxima campaign, corrected him. And she had been right. The accepted historical analysis had missed a crucial supply line vulnerability that the humans had apparently documented in their own records. Instructor Yash, who ran the survival training program, told me that Kira had built a functioning shelter, water purification system, and signal beacon on a Class 4 death world in under 6 hours. The previous record was 14 hours held by a Voltharian survival specialist, even old Kren, the weapons master, who had literally written 3 of the textbooks we used, admitted that Kira had shown him a human close-quarters combat technique called Krav Maga, that he was considering adding to the curriculum. I started paying more attention. I noticed that Kira never bragged, never showed off. She completed her assignments, helped other cadets when they struggled, and maintained a respectful demeanor at all times. But there was something underneath that politeness, something that reminded me of a coiled spring, potential energy waiting to be released. The third warning, the one I should have taken seriously, came during the Fleet Tactics module. We were running a large-scale space combat simulation. 30 cadets divided into 3 fleets, each trying to control a strategic system with limited resources. It was supposed to teach resource management, tactical flexibility, and the fog of war. Most sessions ended in a negotiated stalemate after about 90 minutes. Kira's fleet won in 42 minutes by implementing something she called a carrier strike group doctrine that used smaller fast attack craft to overwhelm larger capital ships. When I asked her where she learned that strategy, she said it was based on something called the Pacific Theater from A War on Earth. A war on Earth. One planet. They had warfare sophisticated enough to develop tactics that worked against opponents spread across multiple star systems. That night I did something I probably should have done at the beginning of the semester. I accessed Kira Valdez's full file. Most of it was standard. Born on Earth, northern continent, in a region called New Mexico. Graduated top of her class from some local academy. Scored in the 98th percentile on the coalition aptitude tests. Recommendation letters from 3 Earth military officers whose names meant nothing to me. But there was a note, a small annotation buried in the security clearance section. It simply said, Combat Veteran, age 16, classified operations. Combat Veteran, at 16 cycles. The years are shorter than standard galactic cycles, but still, 6. What kind of species sends children into combat? I was still processing that when the incident happened. It was a regular class day, nothing special scheduled. We were reviewing orbital assault patterns when the door opened. Not the normal sliding open that happens when someone approaches, but a forced override. The kind that happens during emergencies. 3 figures entered. They were not wearing academy uniforms. They were wearing tactical armor, the expensive kind with integrated shielding and sensor baffles. Their species markers were obscured, but I recognized the posture of professional soldiers. The lead figure, tall and heavily built, scanned the room until his eyes, definitely plural, so probably not Yendari, locked on Kira. "Kira Valdez," he said, voice distorted by a modulator, "you need to come with us." Every cadet in the room tensed. Kira, to her credit, barely reacted. She closed her data pad and stood slowly. "On whose authority?" she asked calmly. "Coalition security. You were wanted for questioning regarding Incident 773-4 at the Andromeda Station." I had no idea what Incident 773-4 was, but I knew standard procedure. "This is highly irregular," I said, positioning myself between the armed figures and my students. "If Coalition security needs to speak with a cadet, they submit a formal request through Academy administration. They do not burst into classrooms with weapons." The lead figure tilted his head toward me. "This does not concern you, Instructor. Step aside." That was his first mistake. "Everything that happens to my cadets concerns me," I said. My defensive spines were beginning to extend, an involuntary response to threat. "You will leave this classroom immediately and follow proper protocols, or I will activate security and have you removed." His hand moved toward his weapon. That was his second mistake. Kira moved. "I teach combat theory. I have watched thousands of hours of training footage. I have studied the martial techniques of 47 different species. I have never seen anyone move that fast." One moment she was standing at her desk. The next moment, she was somehow behind the lead figure, one arm around his throat, the other controlling his weapon arm. He tried to react, tried to bring his superior mass to bear, but she did something, some technique I could not even follow, and he was on the ground. The other 2 figures raised their weapons. "Do not," Kira said quietly, and there was something in her voice that made even me hesitate. "You really do not want to do that." They did it anyway. What happened next took perhaps 4 seconds, though my memory insists it was longer. Kira released the first figure and moved toward the other 2. One of them fired, a stun burst that should have incapacitated her. She was not there when the energy arrived. She was to the left, then somehow above, using a desk as a launching point. Both figures went down. I did not see exactly how. It was too fast, too precise. The entire classroom was frozen. 30 cadets, trained warriors from a dozen different species, watching a human girl who weighed maybe 60 kilograms take down 3 armed soldiers in less time than it takes me to speak this sentence. Kira stood over the 3 unconscious figures, breathing slightly elevated, but otherwise composed. She looked at me. "Instructor Thalinax," she said, "I apologize for the disruption. Would you please contact Academy Security and inform them that we have 3 intruders who need to be detained?" I activated my communicator. My manipulator limbs were trembling slightly. "Security? This is Instructor Thalinax in Classroom 7. We have a situation." Security arrived 4 minutes later, a full tactical team. They took the 3 figures into custody. Their armor, when removed, showed no coalition insignia, no species identification, nothing. The Academy went into lockdown. The interrogation lasted 6 hours. Not for Kira. For me. The Academy Security Council wanted to know everything. What had I seen? What had Kira said? Had I noticed any unusual behavior in the weeks leading up to the incident? Did I have any evidence that she was working with external parties? I told them the truth. Kira Valdez was an exemplary cadet, who had defended herself and her classmates against armed intruders. That should have been the end of it. It was not the end of it. 2 days after the incident, Commander Vixthar summoned me to his office. Vixthar was a Thulian, which meant he had 4 arms, crystalline exoskeleton that reflected light in unsettling patterns, and absolutely no sense of humor. He had been running the academy for 23 cycles and treated regulations like they were sacred religious texts. "Instructor Thalinax," he said, without preamble, "we have a problem with Cadet Valdez. I settled into the reinforced chair designed for my species. She defended herself against attackers. I failed to see the problem. The problem, Vexthar said slowly, as if explaining orbital mechanics to a child, is that those 3 attackers were professional operatives, former Coalition Special Forces, and she neutralized all 3 in under 5 seconds without sustaining injury. She is clearly well trained. Clearly, Vexthar tapped one of his claws on his desk, a rhythmic sound that made my spines itch. Tell me, what do you know about Earth military doctrine? Very little, I admitted. They are a new member species. Class 3 civilization, recently elevated to Class 2 status. Standard integration protocols. Standard protocols. Vexthar made a sound like grinding rocks. Let me educate you, Instructor. Earth has been engaged in continuous warfare for approximately 6,000 of their years. Not wars of expansion, not resource conflicts. Wars against themselves. They have developed approximately 400 distinct martial arts systems. They have built weapons capable of rendering their entire planet uninhabitable. And they did all of this before they achieved faster than light travel. I waited. Vexthar was building towards something. Kira Valdez, he continued, pulling up a holographic display, is not just any human, she is part of something called the Terran Response Division. Do you know what that is? No. Neither did we, until 3 days ago. It is apparently Earth's answer to threats that their regular military cannot handle. The requirements for admission are classified, but from what we have been able to gather, less than 0.001% of applicants are accepted. Kira Valdez was admitted at age 14. 14. Even accounting for the shorter Earth years, that was barely adolescent by most species standards. She has been involved in at least 7 classified operations, Vexthar went on. We do not know the details because Earth has sealed the records tighter than a Crexian vault. But we do know that she has killed multiple times in combat situations that, according to the fragments we have accessed, should have been impossible survive. The room felt colder. She is a student. She is a weapon, Vexthar corrected. A weapon that Earth has disguised as a student and placed in our academy. The question is why. I thought about that, about Kira helping other cadets with their homework, about her sitting quietly in the back row, taking notes, about the way she had apologized for disrupting my class after taking down 3 armed soldiers. Perhaps, I said carefully, they sent her here to learn, not to spy, not to infiltrate, to actually learn from us, the same way we learn from each other. Vexthar stared at me with his multifaceted eyes. You are naive, Thanex. Dangerously naive. Or perhaps you are paranoid, Commander. That was probably not wise to say. Vexthar did not appreciate being contradicted, but before he could respond his communication console chimed. He listened for a moment, his expression difficult to read on a Thulian face at the best of times, becoming even more rigid. Send her in, he said finally. The door opened. Kira walked in, still wearing her cadet uniform. She looked small, unthreatening, completely unremarkable except for those disturbingly focused eyes. Cadet Valdez, Vexthar said, thank you for coming. I was ordered to come, Commander, but you are welcome. I appreciated that. Humans had an interesting relationship with authority, simultaneously respectful and slightly subversive. I will be direct, Vexthar said. We know what you are. We know about the Terran Response Division. We know that you are far more than a simple cadet. What I need to know is why Earth sent you here. Kira stood perfectly still. Earth did not send me here, Commander. I requested assignment to the Galactic Military Academy. Why? Because, she said simply, I wanted to learn how other species approach warfare. Earth is good at fighting. Very good. But we are also very good at making the same mistakes repeatedly. I thought perhaps by studying with cadets from across the coalition, I might learn different perspectives, better perspectives. You are a killer, Vexthar said bluntly. Your file, what little we can access, makes that clear. Why should we allow a killer to remain in our academy? I expected anger, defensiveness. Instead, Kira smiled, that bone-showing expression that humans used. Commander, With respect, every cadet in this academy is training to be a killer. That is literally the purpose of a military academy. The only difference is that I have already done what most of them are still preparing for. The silence stretched. Vexthar was not accustomed to being outmaneuvered in verbal exchanges. "The 3 operatives who attacked you," he said finally. "Do you know who sent them?" "No." "Do you know why they wanted you?" "I have several guesses, but no confirmed intelligence." "And yet you are not concerned?" "I am extremely concerned, Commander, which is why I have already contacted my superiors on Earth and requested additional security protocols. But I do not intend to leave the academy unless you order me to. I came here to learn, and I would like to continue doing so." Vexthar looked at me. I had no idea what my expression conveyed, but apparently it was enough. He turned back to Kira. "You will submit to daily security scans, you will report any suspicious activity immediately, and you will limit your off-campus activities until this situation is resolved. Understood?" "Yes, Commander." "Dismissed." Kira saluted, a human gesture that the Academy had adopted for the sake of Earth cadets, and left. I moved to follow, but Vexthar stopped me. "Keep an eye on her the next. I do not trust this situation. I do not trust Earth, and I do not trust that girl, no matter how polite she appears." I did not respond. What could I say? The next 2 weeks were tense. Academy security was everywhere, checking credentials, running scans, making everyone nervous. The other cadets gave Kira a wide berth, uncertain how to interact with someone who had taken down 3 armed soldiers with her bare hands. I watched her during classes. She was the same as before, focused, diligent, respectful. If anything, she seemed more determined to excel, as if proving that she belonged here. Then the second attack happened. This time it was during combat drills in the training arena, a massive facility that could simulate everything from zero-gravity combat to hostile atmosphere engagements. There were 40 cadets present, 5 instructors including myself, and full security monitoring. They came through the observation deck. 6 of them, not attempting subterfuge this time, just raw, brutal assault. The first we knew of it was when the main door exploded inward, not unlocked, not forced. Exploded. Someone had used military-grade breaching charges. The 6 figures that entered were wearing full combat armor, the kind with integrated weapon systems and shield generators. They moved with professional precision, immediately establishing fields of fire and securing the entrance points. "All cadets on the ground now," one of them ordered through external speakers. The voice was electronically scrambled. "We are here for Valdez. Nobody else needs to get hurt." The cadets hesitated. These were trained military students from warrior cultures. Being ordered to the ground by attackers went against every instinct. I said down. The figure raised his weapon, some kind of plasma rifle that hummed with barely contained energy. Kira was near the far end of the arena. I saw her scanning the space, calculating angles and distances with that unnervingly calm expression. "Wait," she called out, her voice carrying across the arena. "You want me? Fine, let everyone else leave, and I will come with you." "Not how this works, human. Everyone stays until we secure you." "Then you have a problem," Kira said, and I swear I heard amusement in her voice. "Because I am not going anywhere, and you just trapped yourselves in an enclosed space with 40 very angry cadets and 5 combat instructors. You might want to rethink your tactical situation." One of the attackers fired, not at Kira, at Instructor Yash, who had been moving to activate the emergency protocols. The plasma bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending him crashing to the floor. That was their mistake. I say mistake because what happened next was not just Kira Valdez taking action. It was every single cadet in that arena deciding simultaneously that these attackers had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. The Voltharian cadets charged, their natural armor allowing them to take point. The Crexians were right behind them, roaring battle cries that made the arena's acoustic dampeners strain. The Yendari cadets moved to flank, using their natural agility to scale the arena walls. And Kira did something I still cannot adequately explain. She grabbed a training weapon from a nearby rack, just a simple staff, and she moved into the chaos like she had choreographed it. She was not fighting against the cadets' assault. She was coordinating it. A gesture here directed 3 Voltharians to hit a specific target. A call there repositioned the Krexian assault. She turned 40 individual fighters into a single devastating unit in the space of seconds. The 6 attackers were professionals. They were well equipped. They were prepared for resistance. They were not prepared for this. The battle lasted 90 seconds. When it was over, all 6 attackers were unconscious or restrained. 3 cadets had minor injuries. Instructor Yash was being treated by medical personnel who had rushed in the moment the emergency alert triggered, and Kira Valdez stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard, still holding that training staff surrounded by cadets from a dozen different species who were looking at her with something between awe and fear. I activated my communicator. Commander Vexthar, we have another situation. His response was succinct and thoroughly unprofessional. I will not repeat it here. The investigation that followed was extensive. The 6 attackers, once their armor was removed and their identity scramblers disabled, turned out to be mercenaries. Well-paid mercenaries. The kind who do not ask questions about contracts as long as the credit transfer clear, but they did not know who had hired them. The contract had been arranged through multiple, anonymous intermediaries. Dead ends everywhere. 2 days after the second attack, I found Kira in the Academy library. She was reviewing tactical simulations, running through scenarios with the kind of focus that suggested she was not really seeing the holographic displays, but rather working through some internal calculation. Cadet Valdez, I said, approaching her station. May I speak with you? She looked up, blinked, and nodded. Of course, Instructor Thelux. I settled into a nearby chair. Why are they after you? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed, a very human sound of exhaustion. Do you really want to know? I believe I need to know. 2 years ago, she said slowly, I was part of an operation. We had intelligence that a weapons dealer was selling classified coalition technology to hostile entities. Not just technology, biological weapons. Things that could devastate entire population. The kind of nightmare scenarios that keep security councils awake at night. She paused, organizing her thoughts. My team was sent to intercept the transaction and eliminate the threat. We succeeded, but the weapons dealer had connections. Powerful connections. People in the coalition who were profiting from his operations. When we shut him down, we did not just stop a criminal. We exposed a network. And now that network wants you dead, I said. Now that network wants everyone who was involved dead, she corrected. I am one of 3 surviving members of that operation. The others have already been targeted. I came to the academy partly to learn, yes, but also because I thought it would be safe. I thought they would not dare attack a coalition military installation. You were wrong. I was spectacularly wrong. She smiled without humor. I am sorry, Instructor. I never intended to bring danger to this place. If you want me to leave, I understand. I considered that. Considered the threat she represented just by being here. Considered the danger to the other cadets. Then I thought about the way she had turned 40 individual fighters into a coordinated unit in 90 seconds. About the tactical brilliance she displayed in every simulation. About the fact that she had taken down 9 professional operatives without killing any of them, despite having every justification to use lethal force. No, I said finally. You will not leave. But we are going to end this. She looked at me with those unsettling eyes. How? By doing what your species apparently does best. By making them come to us on our terms, in a place of our choosing, and then hitting them so hard they never consider threatening a coalition institution again. For the first time since I had known her, Kira Valdez looked surprised. You want to set a trap? I want to set a very elaborate, very nasty trap, I confirmed, and you are going to help me design it. Over the next week, we planned. Not just Kira and myself. Commander Vexthar, once he overcame his initial resistance, contributed his strategic expertise. Instructor Yash, recovered from his plasma burn, offered insights on defensive positions. Even old Kren the weapons master got involved. clearly excited at the prospect of field testing some of his more experimental designs. The cadets, when they found out what we were planning, volunteered immediately. All of them. Even the ones who had previously been nervous around Kira. "She is one of us now," Grex said simply. "You attack one cadet, you attack all of us." The trap was elegant in its simplicity. We leaked information through carefully monitored channels that Kira would be participating in a solo navigation exercise in the training ranges outside the academy proper. Isolated location, minimal security, perfect opportunity for an extraction or assassination attempt. What we did not leak was that the training ranges had been thoroughly rigged with sensors, defensive emplacements, and a very motivated welcoming committee. They came on a Tuesday, local time, approximately 1400 hours. 12 of them this time, not bothering with subtlety anymore. They came in 3 assault craft, heavily armed, clearly planning on overwhelming force. They landed in the designated area, deployed in standard tactical formation, began their advance toward the location where Kira was supposedly conducting her exercise. Then we hit them. Not with overwhelming firepower, that would have been too easy. Instead, we hit them with exactly the kind of coordinated, multi-species assault that Kira had demonstrated in the arena. Voltharian shock troops from one direction, Krexian heavy assault from another, Yendari snipers providing suppressing fire from elevated positions, and Kira herself leading a squad of mixed-species cadets in a flanking maneuver that cut off their retreat. It was beautiful, terrifying, but beautiful. The mercenaries never had a chance. They had prepared for one human. They had not prepared for 40 cadets who had trained together, learned from each other, and decided collectively that threatening one of their own was unacceptable. 15 minutes after it started, it was over. 12 prisoners secured. No casualties on our side, though Grex did manage to crack his shoulder plate, which he was absurdly proud of. The real victory came 3 days later when Coalition security, with some very aggressive assistance from Earth intelligence, tracked the money trail back to its source. A trade consortium, supposedly legitimate, that had been funneling weapons to insurgent groups across 3 sectors, the kind of organization that thought it was untouchable. They were wrong. When the dust settled, 17 high-ranking officials were arrested. 4 corporations had their coalition trading licenses permanently revoked, and 1 very dangerous weapons network was dismantled, all because they had made the mistake of targeting a cadet at the Galactic Military Academy. The semester continued. Kira completed her courses, still at the top of her class. The other cadets stopped treating her differently. If anything, she became something of a legend, the human who had been attacked twice, and responded by helping to dismantle an entire criminal network. On the last day of the semester, Kira came to my office. "Instructor Thelinax, I wanted to thank you." "For what? Helping you survive assassination attempts?" "That seems like a fairly basic responsibility," she smiled. "For believing that I was here to learn, for not treating me like a weapon to be feared, for showing me that cooperation between species can be stronger than any individual combat prowess." I felt my defensive spines relax, a sign of comfort. "You taught us as much as we taught you, Cadet Valdez. Perhaps more. You showed us what humans are capable of when pushed to their limits. It was terrifying and impressive in equal measure." "That is kind of our species in a nutshell," she said. "We are kind of a mess, but we are very good at adapting. Will you return next semester?" "Absolutely. I still have 3 more courses to complete, and Instructor Kren promised to teach me advanced weapons engineering. Also," she added with a grin, "I heard there is a new simulation that involves zero-gravity boarding actions. I want to try that." Of course she did. After she left, I sat in my office and thought about the semester, about the assumptions I had made, about the lessons I had learned. Humans were not what I had expected. They were not soft. They were not weak. They were survivors, fighters, innovators. And apparently they were very good at turning attempts on their lives into teaching opportunities. I pulled up my class roster for next semester. 28 names, 5 species, including 1 human named Marcus Reeves, who had a note in his file that said, former combat medic, specialized in hostile environment trauma response. I sighed. Another human. Another potential situation waiting to happen. But also, I had to admit, another opportunity to learn. Because if there was one thing Kira Valdez had taught me, it was that humans had a lot to teach the rest of us. We just had to be willing to listen, and maybe